Hey all my homeowners, my California homeowners, this is Josh Sternberg from Sternberg Law Group. In this video, we're going to talk about surplus funds. What are surplus funds? So surplus funds is a term post-foreclosure. So this means that your house has already been foreclosed on. Surplus funds means that when the house was foreclosed on, it was purchased by a third party, and that third party paid more than what's owed on the house. And the money that's left over after all the liens are paid off is considered surplus funds. Okay, it's a pretty easy concept to understand, but let's go over a little bit so that you have a better feeling and grasp for the situation. So first of all, you really never want to find yourself dealing with surplus funds because that means you've been foreclosed on. It's almost always better to sell your house than allow it to be foreclosed on. But from time to time, unfortunately, people are dealing with surplus funds, and we do help people acquire those surplus funds, make sure that they get it into their pocket, that it doesn't go to the wrong person's pocket or even end up in the state's pocket, which I'll explain to you in a second. As I always like to do, let's go over an example. Let's say that you owe $400,000 on your first mortgage, $100,000 on your second mortgage, and you have a $50,000 tax lien. So that's 400 plus 100 plus 50. That means your house is encumbered by $550,000. If the house goes to foreclosure and somebody bids on the house and wins it for $750,000, that means that the $750,000 bid compared to the $550,000 you owe on the house, that there's surplus funds of $200,000. Let me stop right here and explain an important characterization, or something that can be a little bit different. If the house goes to foreclosure but nobody bids on it and it reverts back to the bank, it becomes bank owned, also known as REO, real estate owned. If a bank owns your property after a foreclosure, there's no surplus funds because there was no winning bidder, no money changed hands. It's just that the house was foreclosed, nobody bought it, it goes back to the bank as an REO. So surplus funds happens when there's a third party buyer and that amount is higher than the payoffs. So if the amount was $750,000, the payoffs between the first mortgage and the second mortgage and your tax lien was $550,000, you need to hire an attorney. You can call us, sternberglawgroup.com. We need to then go to the foreclosure trustee and we need to work with them to make sure all the liens are paid off and that extra $200,000 is transferred to you by way of a check. Again, should go through a professional and attorney's office to make sure that it's done correctly, and then that money becomes yours. As in real estate, these are all ins and outs. This scenario specifically is if a first mortgage is foreclosing. If a second mortgage is foreclosing, it's a little bit more complicated. Okay, let me take you through that. If a second mortgage is foreclosing, whoever buys the property is buying the property in a second lien position. That means that the first mortgage is still in existence. So before you take your surplus funds, or when you take your surplus funds, you have to determine what you're going to do with that first mortgage. Because technically speaking, even though you don't own the house anymore, that debt is your debt. That's very complex. That does typically require a conversation with an attorney so we understand the full scenario. But this is a video that's meant to summarize and give you a beginner's guide to understanding surplus funds. If you or one of your friends are in a surplus fund position, or one of your loved ones, please think of us, sternberglawgroup.com. My name is Joshua Sternberg. I hope that this video helps. We're here if you need us. Any comments, drop them below. Thank you so much, my California homeowners.